I'm trying to get sensory input. When I can get that, that's going to be my cranial nerve number 2, the optic nerve. Cranial nerve number 1, the olfactory. By the way, the naming of these 12 cranial nerves were basically based on the discovery. There's no significance because you need all of them. Well, here's one. Cranial nerve number 3, the ocular motor. There's actually 3 ones that deal with the whole aspect of your eyes moving around. So the number 7, the facial nerve. That's cranial nerve number 5, the trigeminal. It actually does another thing. It does some sensory parts. Some of these nerves do both. So inside your brain, remember the central nervous system is the brain, but nerves are peripheral nervous system. Those nerves are going outside to detect or tell, meaning detect, sensory, or tell, to do something, motor. So in this video, first, brought to you by Curious Maryland. Okay, so what we want to talk about is the mixed nerves of sensory and motor nerves that are found inside your cranium, these are the nerves that protrude off your brain, and we have 12 of them. And what we want to do is major functions and talk about tests. And this is going to be a short video, but so let's look at this here. Don't forget the big picture. From the sensory receptors, peripheral nervous system, afferent, remember unipolar neurons, to the processing, so you're going to have a mixture of neurons here, to multipolar, sending down the directions, whether it's going to be a skeletal muscle motor effector, or maybe it's going to be your parasympathetic and sympathetic part of the autonomic, which is going to be your smooth muscle. So we'll review that as well. Don't forget, a nerve, again, is really a collection of neurons and blood vessels surrounded by connective tissue. So these are the 12 cranial nerves. As I said earlier, they're named by the order in which they were discovered. So we're going to look at a couple of these. Now, one thing to draw here is, if you notice, this cranial nerve right here is labeled blue. This one's blue, blue over here, and then red. So blue is going to be sensory, and then red is going to be motor. Notice the trigeminal one. The trigeminal nerve actually has two things. It's a mixed nerve. It can be sensory detection here. All right. If you tap your forehead, you're actually, the trigeminal is picking up that signal. Now, if you're like, hey, what'd you do? The trigeminal, you're moving your mouth. Of course, vocal cords, that's more complicated, but yeah. Doing this is a motor action. This is a skeletal muscle moving my mouth. All right. Now, as we said, we've got sensory, and then we also have motor. So everything, and that's pretty much what we're going to do. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time elaborating on each one of these. What we want to do is test these. What you're going to be expected to know is be able to tell us the function, whether it's a sensory or a motor, and any type of test. So that's like a medical test. Like, is that nerve functioning properly? I mean, this is measuring your ocular nerve, your ocular motor nerve. And there's actually, let's go back. There's actually 3 nerves that are all contribute to the movement of the eyes. Some are those lateral muscles that are moving it like that, up and around. So it actually takes 3 motor neurons to actually get your eye to get into position, so that optic nerve 2, which is cranial nerve 2, can actually detect what's going on. And those informations are going to go in here. You see the optic chiasma. So they're called, again, cranial nerves because they're coming off your brain directly. Spinal nerves, as you go down, if you were to draw this down, they have functions as well, but we're going to focus on cranial nerves for this short little video. And we're going to finish up by looking at this, and one of the exercises we're going to do in class is we're going to bring up this page, and we're going to write right next to this the test that you use. Now, quick reminder, these are the 12 cranial nerves. Some are sensory, some are motor, some are mixed, like the facial nerve, like the trigeminal. When we say fixed versus one or the other too. So let's look at here. See, for all the ones that are fixed, you'll notice this is all the sensory aspect of it, and then this would be the motor. All right. This is one of the ones that moves your eye. Remember, there's 3 that move the eye. Then you got the vagus nerve. So these are, I can talk about each one, or just you can pause the video and take a look. Vestibular cochlear is an interesting one. It's a sensory that actually does 2 things. It's involved in hearing, but it's also involved in balance. This is why someone gets hit in the ear, they lose their balance, and that's affecting the vestibular part versus the cochlear. These 2 nerves are wrapped together, again, by that connective tissue, and that's part of our special senses, which is a future unit. Here's another view looking at, and this is pretty much the actual specific location of these cranial nerves. The olfactory nerve right here, the bulb that kind of protrudes here. You have that tract. That tract is part of the brain tissue, but then when you actually get to the nerve, it's outside of the brain. The one thing about the optic nerve here, you see the optic chiasma, and then this is going to, now what you don't see is this is going to run to the eye. This is going to run to the eye, or you could say the eye is running to it. Is probably a better way of saying it. All right, yes, there's motor nerves that move the eye, but then the sensory input, say follow the mouse, that sensory input's coming to your eyes, coming to your eyes, coming to your eyes. It's being funneled, say here's one eye, it's going to come over here, it will come in here, cross over. So the trochlear nerve, again, just pause the video, just kind of get a visual of where all of these are. So use your optic nerve to figure out what's going on here. So let's look at test. Now again, this is something I would pause the video. So the way this is oriented, they tell you the name of the nerve, they tell you its origin, its function, and then this is a test. This is a test that we use, that a doctor might use, or emergency medical might use. This is what they're going to do. They're going to say, hey, we can test to make sure that that nerve is functioning properly. That nerve is made up of a bunch of neurons. Okay, so the optic, this is a visual field. This is going to be what you're actually testing, whether you're actually sensing and seeing, versus this one is whether your eye can move and actually follow it. So pause the video, take a look at this. Pause the video and take a look at this. These slides will be on Blackboard, so when you're writing out questions and studying, you can kind of go through and say, hey, this. You can try and, what I want you to do is try and project what type of multiple choice question, what type of free response question am I going to write for you on your test? Well, if you understand how it properly functions and how we can detect what happens when it's not functioning. So you can write something when this doesn't occur, or you can write something about this test that was used to detect. What does this tell you about the function? What does this test tell you about the function of that cranial nerve? So before we close this video, so I pretty much have, you can pause it again or go back. Just to kind of wrap up here, big picture, back to that first slide we showed. Think about the somatic nervous system, the autonomic. All right, we've got here, look at this neuron. This is the efferent part. Where's the sensory part going here? So this is showing the directions of what to do. This is showing the directions. So the brain is sending these messages, and this is actually showing you the motor region, those regional landmarks in the brain where it's actually going down the spinal cord to whatever muscle this would be. Over here to this smooth muscle here, the glands. Remember, let's connect this to synapse. Think about this. That would be a synapse. This would be a neuromuscular junction. This would be a synapse. A whole bunch of synapses running down that until, because remember you got trillions of neurons, to the neuromuscular junction, the neuroglandular junction, or tissue. So we'll just leave it here. So we've been talking about cranial nerves, and also reviewing some of the basic aspects of the central nervous system, from stimulation to integration to output, which is the effector. All right.